Hello and welcome back to awtoolbox.com. My name is Glenn Keller and I'm excited to announce that this is our first What's New video on the 2506 version that just released from Siemens of Teamcenter. And what we are going to be doing in this set of videos is diving into kind of what's new topics in the base release for the base license set. We're going to walk through topics that are contained within the What's New in Teamcenter 2506 document that's provided by Siemens in their downloads and documentation section. It's also available in the local help, and in this video specifically, we're going to be starting with what's called fundamentals. This is a section of that document that basically provides usability enhancements to Active Workspace and to the rich client. And we're just going to walk through these different features as long as we have them installed and can look at them. We're going to just kind of get a first perspective of it. We were able to see some of these features in advance when we went to the Realize Live event that Siemens hosted in June. And what we're going to do here is just kind of edge through each one of them and see if we can see a big impact to our usability. The topics that we're going to be working on specifically kind of list out or refer to things like the relation browser. So we used to have this in the rich client side, and it basically allows us to investigate relations between objects, but Siemens has enhanced this a bunch to enable you to be able to view this browser and interact with relationships similar to seeing pseudo folders in the rich client. And we're going to just take a look at what they mean by that enhancement. We're also going to get into multiple checkouts, or interacting with the object and making edits simultaneously. So I'll put simultaneous edits, as long as I spelled that correctly. Simultaneous edits to objects, which is going to provoke us the ability to kind of get a warning that somebody else had edited it, and then make decisions on whether I want to keep my edits, their edits, merge the edits, or whatnot. So we'll see that take place. In addition to that, we will be able to see the total objects in a data set. So data set objects, so basically how many are listed in that set of objects. We'll be able to resize table column options. So basically table enhancements for resizing columns we'll be taking a look at. Left and right alignment, left and right property alignment. So basically what this actually provides is a very nice feel to the way that you look at properties. We'll talk about the way that the properties would wrap and distort the page if you had it one way versus the other. And then we'll get into data security and integrity enhancements in the system as well. Now, as we move on to future videos, we'll also get into things like searching and indexing enhancements, installation and deployment enhancements, administration, customization, and so on and so forth. But again, these are going to act as high-level overviews of these new features. And then as we get into each of our course sets, we'll then dive deeper into those enhancements and really put them to use. So the first one we're going to look at is that relation browser enhancement. So essentially, when I come in here and I go to Explorer and I select something that has child elements or look at something in here, as long as it refreshes and pulls up that page correctly for me, let's grab this test training item 01. What they're saying in the enhancements is I should be able to come in here and pull this down, and now I can see with this selected in the display the relations tree up here instead of in the list of pages down below. So what this allows me to do is utilize some of the new layout options that Siemens provides and basically pull up the tree in addition to everything else. So if I come in and I say relations tree, you can see that this panel opens up. I'll go ahead and full screen it. And you can see in the relations tree, I can see kind of the folder for what relationship is underneath of it. If I take something like inside of my home folder, I have the spec. You can grab a data set of any kind. I right click and choose copy. Then I come back in and paste it on my revision. So paste. You can see that the spec was added as a child here, and then underneath the relations tree, I can see the spec is here, and I could expand it if I needed to. Now, this is a specifications relation versus representation for, so depending on what I have selected, I could see those different relations. This acts very much like the details tab inside of the rich client that we used to know and love. So this is the enhanced relations tree. It gives you kind of that relation object, that context. If I open something else up, so if I say open this object, and then I come in, notice that if I come in here, I don't really have a relations tree option. So if I wanted to do it on something like this, I would have to come into Explorer and pick it from in this object set of data so that the tree shows up. And then when I do that, it has no relationship, so nothing shows up. If I go to details, it'll take me back to the main style sheet. So this is a nice little enhancement. It shows me my relationships fairly quickly, gives me a little bit of a close gap on what I used to have for the rich client and what I have now. All right, so now that we understand a little bit more about the relations tree and what that gives us, now we're going to be diving into another feature that Siemens has put out with this version, and that is the ability to understand if somebody else is also making an edit to something and then get some decisions on whether you would like to keep those edits or make a decision on the case. So in this case, in the rich client, we always check things out officially so that we could lock it down. Nobody can make edits to it until we did it. In Active Workspace, Siemens has been kind of opening this up to where we can make a quick edit and then save it off. But in previous versions, if somebody made an edit, click save, and the next person clicks saved after that, then the last person to click save wins. And their edits are the ones that are going to get stuck. In this new feature, it is going to warn me about it. So to set up for this, I either need two different desktop terminals or two different users that I can log in as. On this box, since it's a single box, one of the tricks that I have is basically coming in here and taking a look at a separate browser. So I'm in Chrome as InfoDBA, and then I'm in Edge as my user. Now, both of which are in the same group and role, DBA, in order to have the permissions to edit the same object. And you can see I've got this test training 01 object sitting here. And then as the user, I have test training 01 sitting here. It is owned by InfoDBA, but also the DBA group. So I should have full permissions to it. So what I'm going to do in here is, first of all, as InfoDBA, I'm just going to edit this. I'm going to say edit. I'm going to say new description. And then I'm going to hit save. So if other people are not working with this, it just saves it. I get the update. But if I hit edit and then I come in here and I begin to add new values, then the other user comes in while I'm doing that and edits it and then says, I have a new value that I need to put in. Then they hit save. There's nothing telling them that somebody else was editing it because I still have it there. But if I go back, notice that I still have my edit in here and I can click save. And at this point, I'm going to get this new feature. So the new feature is this dialog box when I choose save. So I hit save, it comes up. You can see it right here. I can move it around, but it says basically this has been modified and saved by another user while I was editing it. I can save my edits and possibly override the other user's edits, or I can discard my edits and see the saved values. By the way, if you choose to save and access the audit logs, please review the object's history in those logs. So I can say save my edits and do not show again, which basically says my edits rule, and from here on out I don't care. Or I can say discard my edits. And so if I save my edits, then I can see I've got my edit here, and in this page you can see it said something different. And if I click off the object and click back on the object, it'll update with the new value. So it is a nice little feature. It tells you and makes sure that you understand somebody else was editing it. In this case, what I would do is probably discard my changes, or at least talk to the individual that's also taking care of it. Unfortunately, you do need to discard it to see that. So I would hope for more information about which user was editing it while I was editing it. But again, I think the feature as a whole is pretty nice. All right, just moving right along here, we've learned about checkout and check-in enhancements. We've learned about going through and looking at the relations tree. And now we are going in and we're looking at a couple of oddities, just new features that have been enhanced in the usability of things. One of them is very small, but it is a huge one. So one of them is just Siemens has added the file count to these tables. So if you're looking at, for instance, the home folder, this contents table can get rather long, and due to that, knowing how many objects are in here is kind of something that we've been wanting. In addition to this, your admins can enable a feature that adds a little lock here, basically showing you how many objects you can see versus how many are there. So how many may be hidden that you don't have access to as a general number, but it's not going to show you that data because you don't have access to that data. So just a couple of little enhancements to the tables in here, and that exists pretty much anywhere you see a table. So in the contents tab, notice that's 0 now. But if I came into like test training item 01 and went to attachments, you can see the file section has a 1 in it now too for the spec. So little enhancement, it will pay off and give us a lot of information, especially if we've been waiting for things to load or don't want to scroll through and count or export to Excel and see what the row count is. In addition to that, inside of the columns, so in here, we've always had the ability to freeze, filter, all those types of things, but now we have the ability to make this wider. And what this allows me to do is if I want to filter on something, so let me do a search. I'm going to just do a basic search just for everything in my system. I don't have a lot. It's a brand new system. And then I switch this layout to a table layout. I can see everything. And then I wanted to come in and I wanted to filter on something. So maybe release statuses. If I show filters, a lot of times some of these were pretty locked in. This column, this whole box here was only so wide end to end. And we would get them truncated off if we had longer filter values. Now we have the ability down here in the corner to just drag this box over. So a slight improvement. It does give us the ability to see our filters if the values are a little longer, and gives us a little bit more interaction. So I like that a lot, and I appreciate the enhancement, Siemens. Now, one other little nuance change that Siemens has made is the left align versus right aligning property values. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to open up an object real quick, and what I want to pay attention to is just how these properties display over here. And if you notice, the title of the property is right aligned and the property itself is left aligned to that title. So if I were to come in and go to my options in here, so they are in this little ... Notice you have an appearance option. And you've got command labels, comfortable compact. We've seen these in the past. But now we have right align and left align property values. So if I choose left align, notice it's right by default. Choose left align. It's a little harder. This is what we're used to. But it is a little harder to identify what value goes with which property. And then you'll notice if it's a specific type of value, it begins to jump depending on how many values are there. And it's just a little harder to read. If I switch that back up here in the ... appearance, right align, everything just looks a little bit smoother. We don't have that nice crisp edge of the properties anymore, but it does make things a little easier to read. Now, when we add to the fact that we may want to edit this object, so if I come in here and I choose edit, if I had permissions, we can see how the fields will jump. So let me open up an object I do have permissions to. We'll just look at that training item 01 again from earlier. I'll go ahead and open this object up so we can get a full scope of the impact here. And you can see this is right aligned at the moment. So if I choose ... edit, edit, notice that everything kind of lines up here. It does add a little bit for the space that I need to write in, but nothing really jumps too bad. And then if I come back over, edit, save edits, they just kind of jump back. If I go to appearance and go to left align again, and then I come into edit, edit, notice that things still kind of jump a little bit, but it is a little harder. I don't know if you guys can tell, but from my eyes, it is a little harder after the jump for it to actually track to what property aligns to what. Also, the name and descriptions kind of one line down from the top of the box, so I think that messes with me as well. Either way, this is a nice little feature, giving us the ability to read the properties a little bit better. So you can see this is the equivalent for right align. And I think it's more of a play with it and see which one works for you, and then use that one in the system. To finally wrap it up with these little edits, one thing that you will notice throughout the system is what's called ALS. So Siemens has begun to provide attribute level security in Active Workspace for properties that you see on style sheets or in these editors across the system. So if an administrator didn't want you to see the value of a specific property, ALS now provides that administrator the option to basically either make this property read-only or to hide it altogether. Now, if you don't have permissions to a specific property on an object, but you do have permissions on the object as a whole, the property will show up with 3 asterisks for the value, kind of like a hidden password field, so that you can't see the data but know that there is data there. In addition to that, the columns in these tables over here can be set to read only as well. So even if you have write access to the object, if there is a field that the administrators feel you don't need to be filling out, maybe based on interactions with SMEs, then they can lock down that entire column to force you into either editing it in a different place or to prevent you from accidentally editing it across the system. So out of the fundamentals section in this document, there really isn't a bunch more highlighted, but I'm sure there's other features and enhancements that you're going to see as you interact with the system. So as we cap out this video, we are going to then dive into the next segment, which is going to be searching and indexing in Active Workspace. Now, there is a feature in there that interacts with the Copilot tool, the AI integration. We're going to be separating AI from our standard videos and just kind of having an isolated set of videos on that. So stay tuned as we get that set up for you. But in the next video, we'll talk about finding parts using saved images. We'll look at specifying property references on advanced search queries, as well as enhancing shape search performance. The next video, we'll be able to do some of it, and some of it we don't have the licensing for. But stay tuned as we jump into those additional features.